Hey guys, how is it all going? So, thank you so much for joining me for what is my VHS 85 movie review, which is currently showing on Shudder right now. So, I'll give you a little quick history, guys, with me when it comes to the VHS series. I've already said this before, but for the majority of the series, I'm actually quite a fan of it. I've liked most of the segments and most of the movies. I think the only one I never really enjoyed overall was the Viral one. I think VHS Viral is probably by far the weakest one in the series. I really enjoyed the first VHS. I think it had some of the best segments in the series, and the same with VHS 2. But there's been some solid segments in these newer ones as well, but I don't think they've compared to the first two, in my humble opinion. But I was still looking forward to diving into VHS 85, and I'm happy to say that overall, I actually really enjoyed this entry in the series. I thought it was solid. I liked it more than last year's, and I think I liked it more than 94 as well. And also, I am very happy to say this. There's one segment in this one that I actually think is the best segment in all the VHS movies. And yes, I'm even talking about the one which is my favourite from the first one, with that creepy girl with the eyes. I forget what that segment's called, but oh man, that haunted me for years, that segment. But I am happy to say there's a new segment now, which I believe is the best one in this series, and we'll get to it in a second. So, I believe the best way to review this is just to go through each segment in this VHS 85. So there's 5 of them, and of course it's wrapped around by one segment, one story as well. It's done a bit differently this time. This one is a bit like a TV documentary kind of style, and it's called Total Copy, and it's directed by David Bruckner, and it's basically like a documentary on a team of scientists at a university studying like a shape-shifting being, and they name it Rory. Now you don't know whether it's like an alien or they don't really say, I don't think, unless I completely missed that. But it's definitely a shape-shifting being. It can change into like different people, it can mimic different things, and it's quite interesting the way they kind of weave that story in and out of the segments. It's actually quite interesting, and the payoff, I must be honest with you, I didn't expect the last shot of this movie what I saw before. I just started laughing. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to laugh. It's ridiculous, but I quite liked the story that wrapped around the segments. I thought it was really interesting, but I prefer the way they did it in like the first couple of VHS movies, where there was like a story of people kind of like breaking into a house, or they need to find certain tapes, and then to find these certain tapes, they're obviously playing the tapes to see if these are the ones that like they need to take or rob or whatever. I kind of preferred the way they did it in the early in the series, but they're going down a different route now, and it was still highly entertaining. So the first segment is called No Wake, and it's written and directed by Mike P. Nelson. And it's about 7 friends who are travelling on an RV to go to a camp by a lake just to have a good time. But of course, with these VHS movies, they're not going to have a good time. Bad things are going to happen to them. And I'm not going to dive into what happens on this, because I think for the first time in the series, unless I'm wrong, this story actually follows on to another segment later on in VHS 85, which I quite liked, because when I got to the end of this, I was a bit bummed out, because I was actually really enjoying this segment. I was finding it really interesting. And then it just stops. And I'm like, right. That's strange. I really hope we get more of this somewhere down the line. And thankfully, we do. We actually do. And it's a nice payoff. And I like what they did. But it was a solid first segment in this series. Then it was followed by, let's have a look here, followed by second segment is God of Death, which is written and directed by Gigi Sol Guerrero. I hope I've said that right. You know I'm terrible with pronouncing names, guys, but I gave it a go. This one is about a Mexican news crew. They're preparing for their morning news series. They're on location in this building, and then an earthquake happens, and it's just chaos. There's like an emergency team breaking through to help save people, try to get them out of the building. And basically you're kind of thinking, oh, they're just trying to get out of this building. It's an earthquake. It's not as simple as that, as we always know with these VHS tapes. There's like an underlining of supernatural elements happening. And this one, I actually quite liked this segment as well. It was solid. I found it a bit daft near the end when the reveal came out and everything, because especially with this one, you have to suspend disbelief that why do they still have a camera with them? Why are they still filming? And this is one of the segments where I feel like that camera would have been ditched a long time ago. I know the guy turns around this and he says, no, he wants to keep the camera because he's so used behind the camera and he wants to film heroes doing this, that, and the other. But my God, man, if I was part of that emergency search trying to help him get out, I would have grabbed that camera and absolutely ditched it right at the start of the segment. So with that being said, this was actually quite a solid segment as well, which I enjoyed. So the third segment, which is called, is it what, TKNOGD? Whatever that's supposed to mean. This one kind of lost me. I feel like this is the weakest segment in this one so far. It's about like a performance artist, but she's talking about like the god of technology, and then like she wears this like VR headset, gloves, full bodysuit, and then so you're seeing what she's seeing in this like VR, in this virtual reality world, and then obviously the god of technology, I suppose what it is, pops up. I zoned out of this one. Don't get me wrong, it got a bit more interesting near the end when, certain things were happening. But yeah, yeah, yeah. This one to me was very throwaway. It was a bit disappointing considering like the other two segments that have come before it. This is one I would probably completely forget about in about maybe an hour. So I don't have much to say about that one. I do think it's the weakest. Then we get to segment, I think that was that number 4. Yeah, segment 4, which is written and directed by Mike P. Nelson again, which follows on from our first segment. Ambrosia, this one's called. And you get to see the other side of what happens in the first segment. Now, this is really hard to talk about because I really don't want to give any spoilers away. But it's got a very satisfying conclusion in this one. And this one's quite disturbing, particularly when there's a certain section where there's like family and friends all sat around and they're watching a home video of this girl doing some absolute horrendous things. And they're all just sat around like it's just a family video and they're all clapping and laughing and stuff. And it's very, very unsettling. But I enjoyed the way this wrapped up that story. And I do like that they've done that they've took a story from one segment and kind of followed it on into another segment, but seeing like a different perspective, a different side of that story. I hope they carry on doing something similar to that in new ones, because I like that. And like I say, I don't think that has happened before. I don't think it has. It probably has, and I just don't remember. But we come to the fifth and last segment of it. And like I said before, guys, this for me is probably the best segment in any VHS movie. And this one is directed by Scott Derrickson, who gave us Sinister, The Black Phone, Doctor Strange, Deliver Us From Evil. I really like this director. I like his style. I love his visual style. And what reminded me so much of his segment was Sinister, because it's basically, you're seeing it from the point of view of a killer, and he's basically going into these people's houses, and it's horrific what he's doing to these people. I was actually like turning away at some moments in this segment. And what he does perfectly well is this use of sound that he uses. And like I say, it's very similar to the tapes in Sinister, what you're seeing. Like when you'd watch them tapes, it's done exactly the same way. And his use of sound is just, it's so eerie, it's so creepy, it's so unsettling, and it works so well in this segment. This segment is really well acted as well. Brilliantly directed. I don't want to dive too much into this because this segment is so interesting. It's called Dreamkill. And I like the way they kind of used certain things, because you can be like really restricted in the VHS movies, because obviously you got like the VHS camera and all that, but they use like cameras in the rooms in the corner and stuff, so they kind of like, you know, kind of make it a bit more interesting in what they can do. And I really like this segment. Like I say, for me, this is the best segment in all of the series. The less you know about this segment, I believe the better, because I was hooked on this one. And I'll tell you something, I would actually love to see a movie based on this segment. I think this could have been a really good hour and a half horror movie, this segment alone. That's how much I highly like this one. So guys, that's the end of my review for VHS 85. Like I say, I think this is a solid entry in the series. I still don't think it's as good as the first two VHSs overall, in my opinion. But it's definitely up there. It's probably my third favourite. I'd actually go VHS 1, VHS 2, then 85. It's a solid entry in the series. I highly recommend you check this out, guys. So I'm going to give VHS 85, I am going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. So guys, are you a fan of this series? Do you like the other movies? Are you not a fan of the series? Do you agree with me? Do you think Dreamkill by Scott Derrickson is the best one in the VHS series, or do you prefer other ones? Did you disagree with me? Did you not like that one? Guys, whatever it is, please leave a comment below. It is absolutely always a pleasure hearing from you. And as always, please take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you again real soon. Take care, guys. Goodbye now.